There is arguably no better feeling in fantasy football than when you land an absolute steal. You get my 2025 Fantasy Football Draft Dominator, which is jam-packed with strategy and analysis for 250-plus players. And he's been strong in fantasy football. He's averaging over 18 fantasy points per game over 25 career games where he's played at least 73% of the offensive snaps. 2025 Week Winner, formerly known as the Heat Map. So you can conquer start-sit dilemmas, find plug-and-play streamers, and dominate your weekly matchups with this one-of-a-kind resource Discord community, where you can get personalized advice from 180-plus and counting sharp fantasy football minds that are helping each other dominate. 365 days of elite fantasy football analysis, resources, and Discord community. Good morning. Welcome, fantasy football freaks, to week 7 of the NFL season. I am Mikey Henninger, the host and owner of Basement Brewed Fantasy Football. Thank you so much for tuning in to a very special episode 69, a very nice episode 69. I am flying solo today. Tanner is currently on his way to the Kansas City Chiefs annihilation, most likely, of the Las Vegas Raiders. So you're going to have to bear with me because Tanner's usually the guy pressing all the buttons behind the scenes. So far, so good. I almost ran the intro video for his other show that he does with the sports buffoon. So good thing they're not coming after me for copyright or anything like that there. I'm just kidding. Those guys are awesome. But if I start pressing all the wrong buttons today, you're just going to have to suck it up and bear with me. If you have been here before, welcome back. Thank you for tuning back in. Oh, let me turn my light on here. Is that better? That feels better. Thank you for tuning back in. You know what to expect. If you are new to the show, thank you for giving it a look, giving me a try here. A couple things to know. We are going to spend the next 60, 90-ish minutes, and I'm going to go through and answer as many of your Week 7 fantasy football questions, or I guess any fantasy football questions. It doesn't have to be Week 7 specific. I'm going to answer as many of those questions as I possibly can. So start to drop them in the comments section over on the right side. Well, it's the right side for me. I don't know where it is for you. It depends where you're watching. My understanding is we're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, but anywhere you are, drop your questions in the comments and I will certainly get to them as soon as I possibly can. Hopefully I get to all of them. Most likely I won't. And if that's the case, I'm sorry, but you can always, where is it? That QR code up there, that will take you to my shop. That'll take you to my website, Basement Brewed FF, where you can order a monthly membership. You're going to get access to every single thing that we're going to look at today, which you'll see in just a second here. One last thing that I always like to mention at the beginning of this episode is, if you're new here and you're expecting a quick hitting episode where you give me player A, player B, and I just right off the top of my head give you that answer, keep scrolling, because the reality is most of these answers are going to take a little bit of time, and that's okay. The reason for that is I want to give decision possible. The whole idea is putting yourself in a position to be right more frequently than you're going to be wrong, right? We're going to get some of these wrong. There's no way around that. There's not a human on the planet that's going to get all of these right unless they're, Marty McFly from Back to the Future. But I am going to take you through my process of start-sit decisions. And sometimes that takes a little while, but that's only because I want to make sure I'm giving you 100% of my attention, 100% of my process to do everything that I can to help you be right about this decision. So without further ado, I'd say let's start hopping into some of these comments. I see some stuff rolling in on the side. My buddy Jordan Poggle is in the house. He's treating the Week 7 start-sit live show, this show that you're watching today. He's treating it like a new iPhone release, apparently. He was in line to watch the show 24 hours ago The guy lives out on the West Coast. He's out in California, meaning it's 6 a.m. there. And he was literally logged into this show 24 hours ago, not realizing that it was Saturday. And the show was on Sunday. So, Jordan, thanks for waking up early a second time in a row to make sure that you're here for the show. He says, who needs coffee or pre-workout when you have BBFF? The answer is me. I need all of the coffee, not really pre-workout because, I don't really work out, but I need all of the coffee. And quite frankly, I haven't had very much of it yet. So we're going to be working on that over the next little bit. All right, let's start this thing out with Chris Reminisce. That's kind of a fun little name to say. It's got a cool ring to it. So Chris, thank you for tuning in here. Chris wants to know 1 point PPR, DJ Moore or Matthew Golden for flex. Chris was the first one in the comments here. He dropped this comment at 8:04 a.m. and I didn't even start the show until 8:05 a.m. So Chris, I really appreciate it. Now, let me get to this question. DJ Moore, Matthew Golden for the flex. I mentioned at the top of the show that some of these answers are going to take a little bit of time, and here's why. What I'm about to share with you, I'm about to share my screen. If you've been on the show before, you know exactly what you're about to see. If you're new to the show, you're about to see a tool and a resource that I create for my subscribers, for my members every single week. It's called the Week Winner. And this thing is jam-packed with as much information and data and facts and stats as you can possibly stomach for any player that you're considering in your lineup. It was created to help with these decisions. A lot of people also use it for their DFS lineups. They use it for their prop bets. But I started creating this for start sit decisions. I used to subscribe to other websites, rankings and projections, and I always felt like those never told the full story. So I started creating my own resource that does tell the full story. It tells you pretty much exactly what to expect from every player. Now, again, fantasy football is going to fantasy football sometimes, and things are going to go sideways. But if we put ourselves in a position where we can evaluate how the game might go, how the player is doing, how the defense is trending, we can start to get an idea of who's going to overperform, who's going to underperform. And that's how you gain the edge in fantasy football. So if I can figure out what are the right buttons to press, let me share my screen and let's hop into this thing. I think, oh, look at that. One try. And I think I got it right. All right. Let me pump this thing up a little bit. So this is the week winner, right? This is, if you're on Reddit or you were on Reddit many years ago, there's a chance you saw this. This is actually how my whole company, Basement Brewed Fantasy Football, started. I used to post this for free on Reddit. It got to a point where there were complete strangers sliding into my DMs, asking for my Venmo. They wanted to donate money that I wasn't even asking for me to publish this every single week. So on the left side here, like I said, let me zoom in a little bit for you. That looks a little small on my side. So that's what she said. Here we go. All right. So there we go. On the left side, you're going to see all of the game and team information, right? Steelers, Bengals, Rams, Jaguars, Patriots, Titans. All 15 games are going to be on the slate here. It's all color-coded to help you identify higher scoring games, lower scoring games, wider spreads, lower spreads, which can help us dictate determine volume, how volume is going to go. So let me give you a couple quick examples before we jump into this very first question. Commanders, Cowboys, this is the game of the week. If you have any Commanders, if you have any Cowboys, they should already have an advantage in any tiebreaker scenarios because you'll see here this dark green box, 54.5 point over under. That suggests a shootout. That suggests there's going to be plenty of touchdowns, plenty of fantasy football fireworks. Both teams have a projected team total over 26 points, okay? That's usually the type of game that you want to target in fantasy football. So if you're trying to decide between a Cowboys player and, say, a Dolphins-Browns player, where this game is the exact opposite, it looks disgusting, looks like there's not going to be a lot of touchdowns, not a lot of fantasy football fireworks. This is the type of game that should take the lead in any sort of tiebreaker scenarios. And then the other part is spread, right? So Packers-Cardinals, for example, actually, no, let's go to Chiefs. Chiefs-Raiders, for example, this is a wide spread, right? The Chiefs are favored by 11.5. That's more than one touchdown. That's a 2-score game. That suggests the Chiefs are projected to not only win, but win by a lot, win in a blowout. That suggests that second half rolls around. Patrick Mahomes won't need to do too much. They can dial down the pass attempts, increase the rush attempts. Where on the flip side, the Raiders, This suggests that the Raiders are going to be down by so many points. They're going to be getting blown out by the Chiefs. They're not going to be able to afford to run the ball for the entire second half. They're going to dial up 40-plus pass attempts from Geno Smith. Okay? Again, fantasy football can fantasy football. It might not go that way, but there's a reason that people do shows called Bad Beats, where it's kind of shocking and scary how frequently Vegas gets it right. Okay? And that, by the way, is what we're looking at here. These are from Vegas sports books. The over, under, the spread, the implied total. That's not me putting that in there. That's what Vegas sports books are saying. Last but not least, you're going to see numbers on the right side of every team. Quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. All this tells you is how many PPR points per game or where this team ranks in PPR points allowed per game to the opponent's position. That sounded weird, but let me make it easier. The Bengals, you see this one here under the running backs. This tells us that the Bengals are allowing the number one most PPR points per game to opposing running backs. Okay. You can look at that for any team. Now, let's get into the players, right? First one up here is DJ Moore. Okay. That game is Bears. Who do the Bears play here? Oh, yeah. Saints. So that's game number 7 here on the week winner. It hasn't been pretty for DJ Moore. And you keep waiting for that kind of blow-up game in Ben Johnson's offense, and we're just not seeing it. In the week winner, you double-click on DJ Moore's name or anybody's name, Matthew Golden, Tucker Kraft, Kendrick Bourne, whatever. And it's going to give you pretty much everything that you need to know about what to expect from DJ Moore in week 8. So here we go, Chris. Now, Bears-Saints, let's look at the game environment real quick. For starters, the green dot suggests that this is a good game environment for Bears players. This is a good game environment for DJ Moore. And that's because the Bears are entering week 7 as 5.5-point home favorites with a strong projected team total of about 26 points. That's pretty high. That's actually 5th most among all 30 teams playing football this week. Now, the favorable spread does start to suggest a potentially run-heavy game script, but 5.5 points is not wide enough. And actually, that spread now is down to 3.5. The Bears are only 3.5-point favorites. That suggests a nice balanced approach to the game. We're not expecting anything particularly pass-heavy, anything particularly run-heavy. We're just feeling pretty good about the Bears scoring a good amount of touchdowns, which leads to fantasy football fireworks. This is a good spot to tee up Chicago Bears if you have them in fantasy football. Now, DJ Moore himself hasn't been pretty, right? He's averaging less than 10 PPR points per game, less than 6 targets per game. It's been Roma Dunze in that offense more than anybody. It hasn't been pretty. Now, he has scored 8 to 10 PPR points in 3 of 5 games, and his highs this year have been 10.6 points in week 1 and 12.8 points in week 3. His season high so far is 12.8 points. Kind of a nightmare. He's seen about 16.3% of the team's targets. We're treating him as a subpar. He has a subpar floor, a theoretically high ceiling, just based on the player that he is. It makes him a little bit more of a boom or bust type of wide receiver 3, but he's been all bust and no boom so far this year. The matchup itself, after 6 games, the Saints present an up and down matchup for wide receivers, holding them to the 9th fewest catches, 14th fewest yards. They are allowing the 5th most touchdowns and 15th most PPR points per game, and ultimately the 5th most PPR points per catch at over 3 points per catch to wide receivers. Wide receivers that played 75% or more of the snaps against the Saints are averaging 12.3 points and 7 targets per game. Obviously, that's going to include guys like Marvin Harrison, who did pretty well, but keep in mind that's also going to include some guys like Darius Slayton. All in all, we feel okay about DJ Moore. We feel okay about the Bears, not necessarily about DJ Moore, right? And then your other one here was Matthew Golden, and this is for flex. You said this is a PPR. Matthew Golden is tricky, right? Because he's the sort of guy that we're waiting for that blow-up game. And we know it's coming, right? He's not gonna stay as low as he is forever. There is a trend with rookie wide receivers in fantasy football that have a large second half of the season. We're waiting for that to click for Matthew Golden. Now, until we see that, it's kind of tough to trust him in the lineup. It's very much a dice roll, right? It's like, it's coming and you can roll the dice and just hope that it's this week, but there's never any way to know for sure when that week is going to come. Now, The Packers game environment is another strong one. Just like the Bears, it's potentially a little bit more run heavy than the Bears is because the Packers are 6.5-point favorites, but they also have a strong team total of a projected team total of 26 points, which is the fourth most among all 30 teams playing this week. Matthew Golden himself, he's averaging 7.9 PPR points per game. He's averaging less than 4 targets, which is obviously not what you want to see. But he has been coming on lately over the last 3 games. He scored 10 to 13 points on 4 to 6 targets in each of the last 3 contests. He is averaging 11 plus points and 5 targets per game over the last 3. So he's getting very similar volume, right? He's seeing about 17% of Jordan Love's targets over the last 3 weeks. He's seeing very similar volume to DJ Moore. It's that we're waiting for that big game, and we know it's coming, right? He hasn't found the end zone yet. That's going to happen sooner rather than later. His matchup is against the Cardinals. They present an up and down matchup for wide receivers. They're allowing the 7th most catches, 12th most yards. They're holding them to the 5th fewest touchdowns and 12th fewest PPR points per game. Wide receivers that played 75% or more of the snaps against the Cardinals are averaging 11 plus PPR points and 7 plus targets per game. So the question is, do we go with DJ Moore or do we go with Matthew Golden? Ultimately, with Golden, we're projecting about 9 to 13 PPR points. DJ Moore, we were projecting him for 11 to 15 PPR points. Given the fact that the Bears-Saints game could theoretically be a closer game than the Packers-Cardinals game. Now, personally, I think there's some shootout appeal to the Packers-Cardinals game. I think Jacoby Brissett is a capable enough quarterback to keep them in it. I mean, they kept up with Indianapolis last week. So if you believe that game can shoot out a little bit, Matthew Golden's going to carry some upside there. But the fact that the Bears might be throwing the ball a little bit more frequently, I'm going to lean towards DJ Moore on this one. It's not a big lean. It's not like, oh yeah, go DJ Moore. Definitely don't go with Matthew Golden. It's very much 51 to, we'll call it 55 to 45 in favor of DJ Moore. So hopefully that helps. If you can stomach the idea of Matthew Golden finally having that big game while he's on your bench, then yeah, I'm going DJ Moore there. Hopefully that helps, Chris. All right, Victor, my man. Good morning, sir. Hope you are doing well. Hi, Mike. I have running backs Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane. Great. That's an awesome start. Flex, you got Rachaad White. Also good. I don't love his setup this week, but it's hard to bench anybody who's a workhorse. Oh, okay. Here we go. I have Cam Scatterbo on the bench. Do I move any of these running backs? Jahmyr Gibbs and Devon Achane are locked in no matter what. Like, it doesn't even matter who they play, what their matchup is. Those guys are locked in. The Rachaad White versus Cam Scatterbo conversation is interesting. So let's dive into it. Now, we'll start with Rachaad White because that's who you currently have in there. This game is ultimately one that we want exposure to, right? The Buccaneers-Lions, 52.5-point over-under. Both teams have a projected team total over 23 points. Both of those are in the upper half, upper echelon of projected scoring. This is a game you want exposure to in fantasy football. I personally was surprised by the spread. 6 points. I mean, nothing against the Lions. Well, actually plenty against the Lions. Go Pack Go. But 6 point Baker Mayfield and the Bucks continue to surprise. They continue to ball out. Being 6 point underdogs here was a bit of a surprise. I was expecting more of 3, 4, maybe 5 at most points. But the spread does suggest that if the Lions do run away with this game, if they do play with the lead, if they get out ahead early, that spread does suggest that the Buccaneers have to adopt a pass-heavy approach. It might limit some of the rushing volume for Rachaad White. That there is a little bit of a red flag there. Now, Rachaad White without Bucky Irving is still plenty involved in the passing game. So what he lacks in rushing opportunities, he could make up for in receiving opportunities. And again, this game's a shootout, so if there's going to be plenty of touchdowns, he's also a pretty solid bet to find the end zone. Okay. Then we get into Cam Scatterbo, and he's going to be in a very similar situation to Rachaad White, but with less touchdown upside. I know he scored 3 last week, but the Giants are expected to lose by they're 7 point underdogs against the Broncos. They have a really low projected team total of 16.25. That's dangerously low in fantasy football. That suggests the Giants are barely going to find the end zone. Their players are going to have to score their fantasy football points on yardage or catches if you're in a PPR league. And the 7-point spread suggests that, like the Buccaneers, if the Broncos can get ahead early, if they can run away with this game, the Giants might have to abandon the run. It might be more of a 40-plus pass attempt type of game than a 25 rush attempt type of game. So that suggests that if they fall into a pass-heavy script, now again, Cam Scatterbo is plenty capable as a receiver as well. He's done well in the passing game. They do have Tyrone Tracy, who's literally a converted wide receiver, so he's a threat in the passing game as well. But you look at these orange and red numbers for the Broncos. This defense is terrifying to go against, and we've seen what they've done in recent weeks. But they're holding quarterbacks to the second fewest fantasy points per game, running backs the fifth fewest, wide receivers the second fewest, tight ends the fourth fewest. Really, really tough defense to go against here. So ultimately, on this one, I mean, it's really hard to go against Scatterbo considering what we saw from him last week. But it's really important to not chase last week and assume that 3 touchdowns is going to be the norm. Like, this guy runs angry and he's crazy. But we talked about the game environment. Over his last 5 games, he's getting you 19.3 PPR points per game. That is super hard to bench, but that's also heavily skewed by last week's performance. But he still has a solid floor, right? He's getting you 11 plus PPR points per game, 4.4 targets per game, 21 plus touches in each of the last 3 games. That is really, really tough to bench. The Broncos are really tough against running backs, right? After 6 games, they're allowing the 9th most receiving yards, so there's a sliver of optimism there, but they're otherwise holding running backs to the 10th fewest rushing yards, fewest catches, 5th fewest touchdowns, 5th fewest PPR points per game. Running backs that are handling 15-plus touches against the Broncos are averaging just 17.55 PPR points per game, which sounds like a lot, but they're averaging 17-plus PPR points. They need 23-plus touches to do it. Is Cam Scatterbo going to get to 23-plus touches? We don't know. Ultimately, they're allowing 0.75 PPR points per touch to running backs that handle 15-plus touches per game. So Cam Scatterbo is I don't want to give you the wrong idea. He's not a bad option to have here. Like, it's one of those things where most of the time he'll be in your lineup. However, you have another really strong option, right? Rachaad White, similar game script. We already talked about that. Now, what we do like is the higher scoring potential, right? If this game turns into a shootout, there's much bigger touchdown upside for Rachaad White than there is for Cam Scatterbo. That is going to be the tiebreaker here. My answer is going to be Rachaad White. Rachaad White's matchup, though, is kind of like Scatterbo's. It's not great. The Lions are good against running backs. They are allowing the 13th most catches, but they're otherwise holding them to the 7th fewest rushing yards, 10th fewest receiving yards, 13th fewest touchdowns, and ultimately the 7th fewest PPR points per game. Running backs that handled 15 or more touches against the Lions averaged 15-plus points on 18-plus touches. Very, very similar environment, very, very similar workload. Both of these guys are very similar in a vacuum. However, when you look at the games that they're playing in, Buccaneers-Lions or Giants-Broncos, that Buccaneers-Lions game, that's one that, I mean, there could be a combined 50-plus points in that game. Touchdown opportunities, and Rachaad White should be a part of that for the Buccaneers. I'm going Rachaad White, and I hope that helps. I would say that's like a 57-43 confidence Rachaad White over Cam Scatterbo, if that helps. All right, here we go. We got Daniel Silva. Welcome, Daniel. Judkins or Rice in the flex? Oh, man. This one's tough, right? I mean, you got the shiny new toy in Rashee Rice. Obviously, you want to get him in the lineup, but it's going to be, my answer is honestly going to be Quinshon Judkins here. And I'll dig into the why here. In fact, why delay it? Here we go. This is Quinshon Judkins week. You'll see that I have him in the green column. I have 5 columns: blue, green, yellow, orange, red, color-coded. Blue is like the best. This dude is going to blow up. Green, you feel good about. Yellow, you just kind of feel like whatever. You don't feel great. You don't feel bad. It's just kind of is what it is. You'll see Quinshon Judkins is not only in the green column, but he's got a blue dot, meaning he's on the verge of being upgraded into that blue column. Those are the types of players that you want in your fantasy football lineup. Anybody who's listening, anybody who's watching, if you have Quinshon Judkins this week, this is the best setup that he has had all year. He's already been really solid, and he's done that in some pretty tough environments, this is a really good environment for Quinshon Judkins. So this game, by the way, this game opened with a 40.5 over under, which is now down to 34.5. Like it's turning into a really nasty game, but for Quinshon Judkins' sake, the Browns remain favored. Okay. At worst, so they are where is it? What was it? 1.5 or 2.5 point favorites? I think they're 2.5 point favorites. Either way, they're favored. Not by a lot, nothing that's kind of crazy, but it does suggest a nice balanced offensive approach. They don't need Dylan Gabriel to throw the ball 50 times. They can hand the ball to their exciting rookie running back as many times as they want, assuming this game stays close, which Vegas sportsbooks seem to think it will. Now, Judkins himself, he's averaging, that shouldn't be an orange dot. That's got to be a yellow dot. He's averaging 13.1 PPR points per game. He's getting 18 plus touches per game. He's got 10 to 14 PPR points in 2 games, 17 to 22 PPR points in 2 games, and he does have a low of 3.6 points just last week. He's handling roughly 67% of the backfield touches. He's a RB2 with genuine RB1 upside. The matchup is great, right? The Dolphins are a strong matchup for running backs. They are holding them to the 7th fewest rushing touchdowns, but they're otherwise allowing the most rushing yards per game to opposing running backs in all of football. They are dead last. They are the worst in football when it comes to rushing yards allowed to opposing running backs. They're also allowing the 9th most catches, 6th most receiving yards, 7th most PPR points per game, 14th most PPR points per touch. Our running backs that are handling 15 plus touches against the Dolphins, which we can project Judkins for, we can project him for 15, possibly over 20 touches in this game. They're averaging 20.6 PPR points per game on 20.8 touches per game. They're averaging just about 1 point per touch. That includes Kimani Vidal, who balled out against these very same Dolphins just last week. The Dolphins are unraveling as an organization. Rico Dowdle smashed these guys just 2 weeks ago in week 5. Breece Hall did okay on 19 touches. James Cook did well on 22 touches. Even Ramondre Stevenson getting in here at 19 plus. Now, Jonathan Taylor's the only guy who struggled, which is kind of funny because he's arguably the best name in this list. But everybody else has balled out against the Miami Dolphins. You take the good matchup and you take the balanced, neutral, potentially positive game script for the Browns. This is a really good spot to get Quinshon Judkins in your lineup. He is going to be a very safe option, which is a risky thing to say in fantasy football. As safe as it gets, I guess, for fantasy football. He's going to be a safe-ish option with a similar floor to Rashee Rice. Now, don't get me wrong, man. Keeping Rashee Rice out of your lineup feels impossible, given that he's fresh, he's hungry, he's coming into this game ready to go. But here's the thing. We talked a little bit about this earlier. What game is that? Game 6? We talked a little bit about this specific game earlier. The Chiefs are projected to win by 11.5 points. Okay, that's a pretty wide spread. That suggests more than 2 touchdowns. That suggests a blowout win for the Chiefs. Second half of the game, they theoretically shouldn't need Patrick Mahomes to do too much. This isn't one of those games where we're expecting Mahomes to throw the ball 40 times per game, maybe 30. Okay, Rashee Rice, we know what to expect, right? This dude's a dog. Over his last 13 games, he's averaging 18 plus PPR points, 9 plus targets. He's an instant wide receiver 1. There's no way around that. The Raiders are a great matchup for wide receivers, though, allowing the 4th most catches, 5th most yards, 12th most touchdowns, 6th most PPR points per game. Wide receivers that are playing 75+% of the snaps against the Raiders are averaging 12 plus PPR points on 6 plus targets. Like, kind of like Victor's, this is a really good problem for you to have, Daniel. Like it's the fact that one of these guys is going to be on your bench means you have a really good team. This is a good thing. But if it's me, I'm going with Quinshon Judkins here because the floor is going to feel a lot more sturdy than it is for Rashee Rice, especially considering the Chiefs might not need to throw the ball that much. Whereas the ceiling is also going to be somewhat similar, right? If the Browns score a couple touchdowns, Quinshon Judkins is a very good bet to be involved with that. So for me, I'm going Judkins, which feels it's hard to leave Rashee Rice on the bench. But man, if there's a great spot to use Judkins, this is the one. Hopefully that helps. Jordan popping in here. Achane, Rashad White, or Jordan Mason. PPR probably need higher floor versus ceiling. That's Achane all the way. Achane gives you a high floor, elite floor, not elite floor, high floor, elite ceiling. That's going to be Achane. I mean, the guy, there's no way to leave that guy on the bench. He catches, 5-6 passes a game. Rashad White is great. Jordan Mason is fine, but I'm going Achane here, and I feel really good about that one. Ooh, I love this one. Greg Quirk. Good morning, Greg. Hope you're doing awesome, GQ. Appreciate you tuning in, buddy. Jalen Lane or Chris Moore in deep leagues with Commanders, wide receiver room in shambles. Yeah. So here's the thing with that one, guys. If you're anybody who's watching, if you're needy at wide receiver this week, I've been scooping up Chris Moore everywhere that I possibly can. Okay. For starters, we talked a little bit about the game itself, right? Commanders Cowboys, that game has got shootout written all over it in a big, big way, right? It was, let me scroll down. I just updated this. 54.5 point over under. That is insane. That is absolutely that's crazy high. Both teams have implied totals over 26 points. I mean, touchdowns, fantasy football fireworks. If there's one game you want to target in fantasy football this week, this is the one, especially with both defenses aren't particularly great, particularly the Cowboys. I really wanted Deebo Samuel to play in this game for this reason right here. The Cowboys are getting destroyed by wide receivers. They are allowing the most PPR points per game to opposing wide receivers. I'm going Chris Moore over any other Commanders wide receiver solely for the fact that he's been playing more offensive snaps in Terry McLaurin's absence than Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane. He's on the field more than those guys are. So here's the way that I'm breaking it down. Now, we talked about the game environment. You want exposure to this game. You know that. We know that the Cowboys are awful against wide receivers. They're bleeding the 11th most catches, second most yards, most touchdowns. These guys are allowing 2 touchdowns every single game. Every single game, they're giving up 2 touchdowns on average. They are allowing the most PPR points per game and the third most PPR points per catch at 3.39. Wide receivers who played 75+% of the snaps against Dallas are getting 15+ PPR points on just 5.9 targets per game. All right. These guys are getting absolutely smashed. Now, Chris Moore is coming off his best game of the year by far. Week 6, he caught 3 of 5 targets, 46 yards, 1 touchdown, 13.6 PPR points. It was his only game over 3 targets, only game over 2 catches, right? It's not like he's this surefire thing. He's far from it. The reason that I've been leaning Chris Moore over any of the other guys is he's been playing more snaps than Luke McCaffrey, than Jalen Lane. Meaning the Commanders simply have him on the field more than the other guys. That suggests that the coaching staff trusts him more than they trust the other guys. Now, part of that could be his ability as a run blocker, but there's no, he's on the field more than those other guys are. Now, here's the trick with that, though. Luke McCaffrey has been more productive, right? He's been scoring more PPR points than Chris Moore, and he's been doing it pretty well, right? He's been hot over the last 4 games, scoring 10+ PPR points in 3 of them, averaging 10.3 PPR points per game along the way. But the problem is he's doing it all on touchdowns, right? He's entirely touchdown dependent. He scored 1 touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games while failing to see 4 targets in any of them. If you remove those touchdowns, McCaffrey landed under 10 PPR points in all 4 of those games. Okay. He's very touchdown or bust. But again, we're talking about a game with a 54.5 over under. If the Commanders are going to score 26+ points and McCaffrey is one of their guys they go to in the red zone, there's appeal there. Okay. Jalen Lane on the final hand, he is actually playing more snaps than Luke McCaffrey is. He's playing 42% of the snaps, but he's doing nothing with them. He's failed to reach 6 PPR points in any game this season. I'm going Chris Moore, followed very closely by Luke McCaffrey, and then a pretty sizable gap down to the next one, which is Jalen Lane. So if you're trying to decide here, GQ, between Jalen Lane or Chris Moore, I'm going Chris Moore, and I feel pretty good about that one. I'd probably call that like 75 to 25. But I have been picking him up. I also have been picking up, well, it's too late now, but Tutu Atwell for the Rams. But hopefully that helps. I'm going Chris Moore there. By the way, if you have Zach Ertz is in a great streamer spot here as well. All right, next up we have, hopefully that helps, GQ. All right, we got Christian Walter. I don't know who to start, Baker or Drake May. Yeah, you got to go Baker. You got to go Baker here, just thinking about the game environment, and I'll dig into why in 1 second. By the way, if you guys are digging what you're seeing on the screen, this week winner that we've been talking about here, it doesn't have to be me reading it to you. It doesn't have to be you waiting for me every single Sunday morning. This is something that you personally can have access to anytime you want. I put this out every single week. It has details for every single player that you're possibly considering. All you have to do is scan that QR code right up there, which will take you to my shop. If you enter promo code YouTube, YOUTUBE, you're going to get 50% off your monthly membership for as long as you decide to remain a member of Basement Brewed Fantasy Football. Let me give you a look at what that looks like. What's up, my fellow fantasy football nerds? If you're looking to dominate your league from start to finish and win cool prizes along the way, it's time to join the Basement Brewed Fantasy Football family. As a member, you're going to get our brand new 2025 Draft Dominator, which is your ultimate guide with tiers, rankings, and season previews for over 280 players to make sure you walk out of your draft with the best team in the league. And that's only the beginning. You're also going to get our 2025 Week Winner, which gives you contextual matchup analysis for every single player in every single game, every single week, so that you can conquer those difficult start-sit dilemmas and dominate your weekly matchups. And let's not forget our amazing Discord community, which is a family of passionate fantasy football players sharing strategy, workshopping dilemmas, and helping each other dominate 24/7, 365. Plus, if that wasn't enough, every single month you're automatically entered into our autographed jersey giveaway. It truly is a no-brainer if you want to take your fantasy game to the next level, have the most fun you've ever had playing this game, and support a small but mighty business along the way. Sign up today for just $69 for an entire year. Seriously. That's 365 days of total domination, community, and giveaways for less than your last bar tab. Join the BBFF family right now using the link that we left for you in the description of this episode. I'll see you inside. God, I gotta bring the mustache back. I know the wife misses it. I always use that as a good opportunity to take a break. Going through this thing every Sunday morning is exhausting, guys. All right, here we go. Let's get back to it here for Christian. He wants to know Drake May or Baker Mayfield. For the sake of time, I'm going to start speeding these up. Again, I'm not going to start reading through all of these. I'm just going to start giving you what I know about the game, where I would go with this. At any point, if you want access to this, scan that QR code, enter promo code YouTube. You're going to get 50% off your monthly membership for as long as you decide to remain a member. Now, Drake May is, if you got Drake May, congratulations, right? He's obviously balling. This dude's averaging 20.4 fantasy points per game. He's doing really, really well. He scored 21 plus points in 4 out of 6 games that he's played every week. He's usually in every week quarterback one, even in bottom 5 matchups like this. This is a tough matchup, theoretically. The Titans are holding quarterbacks to the 14th fewest passing yards, 8th fewest passing touchdowns, 5th fewest fantasy points per game, less than 15 fantasy points per game for quarterbacks. The thing here with the Patriots is that they're comfortable 7-point favorites, right? Theoretically, they're not going to have to ask Drake May to do too much to walk away with a victory in this game. They should be able to win this game with their defense, with whatever they have as a quote-unquote rushing attack. There's no reason to expect a ceiling game from Drake May because he simply shouldn't have to do too much for the Patriots to win this game. And that's suggested by Vegas sportsbooks when you see that they're 7-point favorites. They do have a top 8 implied point total, which suggests touchdown opportunities. But man, you take Baker Mayfield in this possible shootout with, where's Baker? Oh, I got him way up here. Yeah, he's in the blue column. Okay. That's like, you want Baker Mayfield. We talked about this game, right? Shootout with the Lions. We're not going to spend too much time here. We want exposure to this game, right? Bucks are going to score a lot of points. Lions are going to score a lot of points. Baker's doing just as well as Drake May, by the way. 20.6 fantasy points per game. He scored 17 plus in all 6 games. That suggests a really nice floor for him. Highs of 22 plus, 24 plus. He's a high floor, high ceiling, automatic start quarterback one, especially in a shootout. And by the way, his matchup is great. The Lions are allowing the 14th most passing yards, 5th most passing touchdowns, 14th most rushing yards, 13th most rushing touchdowns, ultimately the 7th most fantasy points per game. All of this to me points to Baker Mayfield. I'm going Baker Mayfield over Drake May, and that's one that I feel pretty good about. I would call that like 80-20. I would lean Baker Mayfield over Drake May. So hopefully that helps, Christian. All right, what do we got next here? G. Griff wants to know half-point PPR. Okay, that matters. That means we do need to place a little bit more of an emphasis on touchdowns here. Need to replace Njoku in both. Like half PPR and full PPR. Got it. So he's okay. So he's got Njoku in both of these leagues. Michael Mayer, Michael Mayer, Mason Taylor. Gosh, this one's tough. Well, let's dive into it. Both of these guys, by the way, have a ton of volume appeal. Okay. The Jets won't be with Garrett Wilson. That frees up 9+ targets, possibly 10+. I can't remember off the top of my head. 9+ targets that need to find a new home. Mason Taylor has already been their de facto wide receiver 2. This dude could see 10+ targets in this game. Okay. Tons of volume potential there. Michael Mayer does still have Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, those guys to compete with. Jacoby Myers, last I saw, is questionable. I am not paying attention to the news right now. It's impossible to be on the show and pay attention to the news, at least for me. But if Jacoby Myers is out, suddenly that frees up a ton of targets for Michael Mayer. But even still, we talked about the Raiders being 11.5-point underdogs. That suggests Geno Smith might be throwing the ball 40, 45, 50 times in this game. Michael Mayer should see his fair share of targets as well. Then you got to look at why isn't this scroll? Oh, I was on the other screen. That's why. Then you got to look at the game setup, right? Panthers Jets. This is where Mason Taylor comes in. Panthers Jets. We're expecting a lower scoring game, right? 41.5 point over under. That's subpar. That's below average. Both teams have projected team totals under 22 points. There's just not a lot of suggested touchdowns, not a lot of suggested fantasy football fireworks here. It's not a game you need to avoid, but it's not one you're trying to target or force into your lineups, right? Now, the good news for Mason Taylor is that the Panthers are getting creamed by tight ends. They're allowing the 2nd most PPR points per game. And again, if you want the details, you want the data for exactly how they're getting smashed by tight ends, scan that QR code, enter promo code YouTube. You're going to get 50% off. But it's a good setup for Mason Taylor. Now, the question is, how many times total are the Jets going to throw the football in this game, especially without Garrett Wilson? This could be a heavy, designed run for Justin Fields. Let's give Breece Hall 20+ carries. Let's get Isaiah Davis involved. There might not be a lot of pass attempts to go around, but when there are, Mason Taylor should be involved. Then you got the Raiders, who, by the way, have a lower touchdown total than the Jets. But we're not expecting touchdowns from either one of these teams. So the Chiefs, by the way, do present a more difficult matchup for tight ends. I do want to present the caveat, though, that tight ends are a little bit like some of these you can definitely wide receiver, running back. You can definitely put some stock into points allowed versus whether or not they're holding. They're a tough matchup for running backs, tough matchup for wide receivers. Tight ends is a little bit more difficult, right? Because you could have a team that goes against Brock Bowers and Trey McBride and Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce. And then you could have another defense that goes against Jatavian Sanders, Brenton Strange, Tyler Higbee, and all these other guys, right? So you got to take those numbers with a grain of salt. And that's why it makes sense to dig into the actual details of the matchup and which players have had good days against those defenses. Ultimately here, if I'm going Michael Mayer or Mason Taylor, man, I got to tell you, this thing is tough. And I will say, when it comes to fantasy football, I'm such a high volume player that I'm very much a big believer in not putting all your eggs in one basket. So if you have an opportunity to split the two here, go Mason Taylor in one, Michael Mayer in the other. I would probably go Mason Taylor for the half PPR 0.1 and Michael Mayer for the full PPR 0.1, just based on the fact that Mason Taylor is on the Jets. They have a higher team total. They're expected to score more touchdowns than the Raiders. I'd be going Mason Taylor in the half PPR point league and then Michael Mayer in the full PPR point league. Hope that helps. Yeah, Daniel. So Daniel said easily Taylor without Wilson. Yeah, I mean, he should get a lot of targets there. Michael Mayer should get a lot of targets as well, though. That's the tricky thing there. All right, here we go. Daddy B Gaming says DJ Moore going to go off today. So that was earlier in the episode. That was Chris who wanted to know DJ Moore versus Golden. Hey, if you if Daddy B Gaming 16 has any insight on this, he's telling you DJ Moore is going to go off. Here we go. Next one up, we got Michael Regine. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. He wants to know Egbuka game time, may have to pivot, need to drop one. Corum, I have K Williams. I don't know who that is, unfortunately. Kendre Miller. Allergies. Oh, Tyler Algier. Marks, Woody Marks, Isaiah Davis, C. Williams, like Caleb Williams? Wait, I'm very confused here. Caleb Williams, I have Jaden Daniels. Okay, I think Michael's asking which one to drop. And by the way, I do not expect Egbuka to play in this game, so I would expect to need to pivot here. You can drop who's K. Williams? You can't be talking about Kyron Williams. K. Williams. I don't know. That one's failing me. Kendre Miller, Tyler Algier, Woody Marks, don't drop him. Isaiah Davis. I would drop Caleb Williams if that's who that is. If you already have Jaden Daniels, you're not going to like Caleb Williams has been great this year. It's a hard name to drop, but if you have a guy like Jaden Daniels, there's no need to even roster a second quarterback, assuming this isn't a 2-quarterback league. So hopefully that helps, Michael. Sorry if I didn't quite understand the question. Hopefully that helps. Lamont Pace says down 50 points, Chase and Brown. Oh man, I'm so sorry. So you went against Jamar Chase. That one hurts. Help, please. I'll do my best. Justin Fields or Sam Darnold, Myers or Golden, Mason Taylor or K. Dot. So here's the thing. You're going to need upside, right? You already know that coming into this. I usually like to look at like Sleeper, my fantasy league, Yahoo, whatever you're playing on. A lot of times they show you a probability of winning, like 63% chance of winning. That usually helps me determine if I want to go floor or safety. I don't put a lot of stock into projections, largely because I basically do my own. But it does give you at least a sense of, is this going to be competitive? Am I going to smash? Are they going to smash? What's it going to be? I don't know where you're at in the overall scheme of things, but it looks like it's off to a rocky start for you. So we're going to approach this question aiming for upside. Okay. Now, Justin Fields or Sam Darnold, the upside play here is going to be Justin Fields. He's always going to bring that massive, massive ceiling just based solely on his rushing ability, especially without Garrett Wilson. Like it's never a good thing that a quarterback loses his wide receiver one, but if that means he makes one read to, why can't I think of not Van Jefferson? I always get Van Jefferson and what the heck is his name on the Jets? That's bothering me that I can't think of it. If he makes one read to, let's just say Mason Taylor and doesn't like what he sees and has to take off running, that's where Justin Fields' fantasy football prowess comes in, is his rushing ability. Okay. Sam Darnold's been solid. He's a really nice floor quarterback lately, but Fields usually brings you a nice floor with that rushing ability. Anyway, Fields is just also the type of quarterback thing that can bring you a 30+ point week if things break right. Okay. So if we're Josh Reynolds, that's it. Josh Reynolds and Van Jefferson, I get mixed up all the time. But if we're aiming for upside, we're going Justin Fields there. That Seahawks-Texans game, that's projected to be a lower scoring kind of defensive slugfest. Texans are pretty tough defense as well. I'm going Fields. Myers or Golden. So Jacoby Myers is one of those, if this is full PPR and he's going to play, right, you got to keep an eye on injury reports. He is questionable. It hasn't looked particularly great, but I haven't checked the news since I've been on the show. If he's going to be playing, I would be going with Jacoby Myers here. It has not been pretty, but if Geno Smith's going to throw the ball 40, 50 times because they're getting smashed by the Chiefs, Jacoby Myers is still their wide receiver one. He should be involved. He should rack up some points. Matthew Golden does have a theoretically high ceiling, but this projects as one of those games Jordan Love doesn't throw a lot of passes. I don't think people realize the volume with Jordan Love is actually pretty low. And this projects as one of those games where he theoretically won't have to dial up 30 passes for the Packers to win this game. So I'm going Jacoby Myers there. Last but not least, we got to look at Mason Taylor or Cade Otton. If we're looking at strictly ceiling, we have to go Cade Otton here just based on touchdown possibility, touchdown upside against the Detroit Lions, right? We want exposure to that game. Mason Taylor is going to be a safer play, quote unquote safer, right? The target potential's there. But Cade Otton without Chris Godwin, without Emeka Egbuka, I don't think Egbuka is going to play. So that pretty much brings it down to, Mike Evans, who's coming off a hamstring. That's always risky. Then you got Tez Johnson. Cade Otton has a chance to be involved in a similar capacity to Mason Taylor, but he's got bigger touchdown upside. So I'm going Fields, Myers, if he plays, and Cade Otton. Hopefully that helps. Good luck, Lamont. Hopefully you make the miraculous comeback. Let me give you some hope. I don't know if you guys remember Christmas night, I guess, many years ago, 2021-ish, I want to say. Alvin Kamara scored, I've lost 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns. He did something crazy. He scored like 50 plus PPR points. I was going against him in the championship. Don't know how, but I ended up winning that game. So hopefully that's the type of week that you have. Lamont, I'm rooting for you, buddy. All right. What do we got next here? Plays 4816 wants to know, I stuck between starting 3 guys at flex right now. AJ Brown, DJ Moore, Kenneth Walker. Who do you think I pick? Man. So just one of these guys from what I can tell. I think I'm going to go AJ Brown here, right? AJ Brown and DJ Moore are both disappointing wide receivers, but AJ Brown is still going to bring you the higher ceiling. AJ Brown actually, his target share and his raw target volume during the course of this year has actually been better than I think people realize. It's just, it hasn't resulted in fantasy points. He's bringing you 7.5 targets per game. He has 8 to 10 targets in each of the last 5 games, but he's catching just 55% of them. I do have him pegged as a nice buy low option. Now, there's also the human element of this. Like, there's clearly turmoil in Philadelphia. AJ Brown's not happy with his role. Devontae Smith's not happy. That locker room seems like it's a bit broken at the moment, and that matters. Like, that stuff plays into this. But if you look strictly at the numbers, he's getting plenty of targets. He's just not catching them. That is the type of profile that would make him a buy low option. But anyway, I'm going to have him over DJ Moore here for sure. He's getting more targets. He has a higher ceiling. DJ Moore is just not quite doing anything. The Vikings could keep this competitive. It's only a 1.5 point spread. So if this game is kind of back and forth, AJ Brown should be involved in this game. So I like AJ Brown. I don't like his matchup. The Vikings are the best in fantasy football against wide receivers, holding them to the fewest PPR points per game. Wide receivers that play 75% of the snaps against the Vikings average just 9.8 PPR points and 5 targets per game. So not great. But I'd still take him over DJ Moore this week, at least. Now, Kenneth Walker, dude, that backfield is a nightmare, and they're talking about trading for Devon Achane, which I'm like, what are we doing here? Please, fantasy football gods, don't let Devon Achane get traded to the Seahawks. But Kenneth Walker is going to be the quote-unquote safest option for you here, plays. The Seahawks are favored by 3. It's a gross, like, defensive game. We're not expecting a ton of fantasy football fireworks. Running backs just generally tend to have a safer floor than wide receivers because you can guarantee rushing attempts. You cannot guarantee catches, right? Like, wide receivers can't succeed without their quarterback doing something first. Running backs, you can guarantee volume because the play call just hands the ball to them. So they tend to have a safer floor. Now, the game itself, nothing particularly special. Kenneth Walker's getting just 10 PPR points per game. in the 5 games that he's played with Zach Charbonnet. He's averaging about 14 touches in those games. He scored 12 points in week 4, 18 points in week 2, but he otherwise scored fewer than 10 points in each of the other 3 games. He's handling 51.5% of the backfield touches. The matchup is no good. The Texans are a mostly tough matchup for running backs. They're holding them to the 9th fewest PPR points per game. There's no way to feel particularly good about this. I think if you need the just like, hey, I just need a couple points, 8 points, you can go with Kenneth Walker. The floor is going to be safer there. If it's me personally, I'm leaning AJ Brown on this one. There's like, it hasn't been pretty. You got to be prepared for a possible 0, 1, 2, 3, but he does have that ceiling that some of these other guys haven't had this year. So I'm going to go AJ Brown on that one. Hopefully that helps, plays. What do we got next? DK for Life 26 wants to know Jalen Waddle or Stephon Diggs. It's going to be hard to not pick Jalen Waddle in a lot of these scenarios moving forward, simply because he's operating as the Dolphins wide receiver 1, predictably operating as the Dolphins wide receiver 1 since Tyreek Hill went down. The game, man, I mean, it's ugly. You don't really want exposure to this Browns-Dolphins game. The Dolphins actually have the lowest projected team total of all 30 teams on the slate this week. That suggests, I don't know, that suggests they're not going to score a lot of touchdowns. Their implied point total is under 17, right? So Vegas isn't even expecting 3 touchdowns out of Miami. But again, Jalen Waddle's playing he's getting the volume without Tyreek Hill. He's got 17 targets, 12 catches, 205 yards, 1 touchdown, 38 plus PPR points in 2 games without Tyreek Hill. He's seeing about 27% of the targets. He's very much a high-end wide receiver 2, if not already on the wide receiver 1 radar. The Browns are a very, very good defense, but they're a little bit up and down when it comes to wide receivers specifically. Now, they're allowing the 5th most touchdowns, which unfortunately we're not expecting a bunch for Miami to begin with. And they're allowing the 4th most PPR points per catch, but they are otherwise holding wide receivers with the 5th fewest catches, 7th fewest yards, 11th fewest PPR points per game. Wide receivers that played 75% or more of the snaps averaged 12 plus PPR points and 7 plus targets. It's just kind of a mediocre up and down matchup. Then let's look for Stephon Diggs here. Now, earlier I answered a question about Drake May, and the thing with the Patriots passing attack is that they simply theoretically won't be asked to do too much in this game, right? They're 7-point favorites over the Titans. They should be able to control this game with their defense, ground attack for whatever that is and whatever that's worth. They have a much better implied point total than the Dolphins. Okay. So there's theoretically more touchdown upside here, which is important. They do have an implied point total of, where was it? 24.5 points, top 8 implied point total, right? Vegas is expecting at least 3 touchdowns out of the Patriots. Stephon Diggs has been okay in a Patriots uniform. He's averaging 11 plus PPR points, 6 plus targets per game. He's been a bit of a mixed bag in terms of total output, right? He scored 5 to 7 points in 3 of 6 games. He has a mid of 11.7. He has 2 spiked weeks of 16 and 24, both of which have been within the last 3 weeks, but he also had that 3-point dud or 6-point dud last week. He has 7 to 12 targets in 3 of 6 games, but he also has 3 to 5 targets. So he's very much boom or bust. He's very hit or miss. Now, this part is interesting and does make him even a little bit of a buy low candidate in fantasy football. He has 32 catches and 387 yards. He has yet to find the end zone. He's currently number 2 on the positive touchdown regression tracker tab at the bottom. What I mean when I say that, one of the tabs that I have in the week winner every single week is a touchdown regression tracker that shows you which players are mathematically due, quote unquote, due to find the end zone sooner or later, right? Breece Hall, for example, has 560 scrimmage yards, has yet to find the end zone. Mathematically, that should balance out a little, or it should lean towards a touchdown sooner than later. Stephon Diggs, by the way, is number 2 on that list. 387 yards, no touchdown. So mathematically, there's some touchdown upside there for Stephon Diggs. So ultimately, am I going Jalen Waddle or am I going Stephon Diggs here? Oh, you know what? I forgot to look at the actual matchup here. Against the Titans, 10th fewest touchdowns, but 14th most catches, 9th most yards, 14th most PPR points per game. Nothing very mediocre. I'll say this. Last I remember hearing about the Dolphins Browns, there's going to be some ugly weather there, winds, rain, etc. It might be one of those scenarios where it's like, let's keep the ball on the ground as much as possible. If that ends up being the case, check out the weather report. Again, there's no way for me to be tuned into that while I'm doing this. Check the weather report. If that ends up being the case, I would probably lean ever so slightly towards Stephon Diggs, but otherwise, I'm going to lean Jalen Waddle here. The game is ugly. There's no way around that, but he is getting wide receiver 1 volume, and if Tua is going to throw 30, even just 30 passes, Jalen Waddle is going to be on the receiving end of the majority of those. So I don't feel, some of these questions I've been like, 80 to 20% I feel really strongly about. I don't feel really strongly either way about either one of these. I would lean towards Waddle just based on that target volume and the fact that the Patriots theoretically won't have to throw that much. But I'd call it like 51 to 49%. I don't feel particularly strongly one way or the other. So hopefully that helps. If it's me setting my lineup, I'm going Waddle. Hopefully that helps. All right, we got another Diggs question here from Tia. Well, I'm not even going to try because I don't want to butcher it. I don't want to do you that disrespect of butchering that name. But Tia wants to know, should I start Stephon Diggs over Ted McMillan? Okay, we talked a little bit about Stephon Diggs. Let's talk about Ted McMillan. Again, this game, Jets-Panthers, we're not expecting too many fantasy football fireworks here. This one looks like it'll be a lower scoring game. Ted's doing pretty well, right? 12.8 PPR points per game. What I love about Ted this year is that he's getting 8+ targets, right? That Panthers offense is very much up or down, but he is getting 8+ targets per game. He scored 10 to 13 PPR points in half of those games. He mixed in a low of 7.8, but he also has 2 higher games of 16 and 17.9. So his floor tends to be about 10 to 13 PPR points with the occasional spike week, the occasional dud as well. 8 to 10 targets in 5 of 6 games. He's getting 25% of his team's targets. The matchup isn't terrific, especially if he ends up dancing with Sauce Gardner, who I think will be active in this game. I haven't checked the Jets defensive cornerback injury report in a couple days. But the Jets are allowing the 16th most yards and 6th most PPR points per catch, but they're otherwise holding wide receivers with the 4th fewest catches, 10th fewest touchdowns, 7th fewest PPR points per game. This is one where it's very similar. It's very similar, if not identical to the last one. I'm going to go with Ted McMillan here. And again, I feel very 51 to 49% on this one. I don't feel particularly strongly in either direction. But if this was me and I had to make this decision, the lean that I would have is Ted McMillan. Hopefully that helps. All right. And then he also wants to know Laporta or she, excuse me. He or she also wants to know Laporta over Fanning. This is one of those where it's like, are we going for touchdowns or are we going for catches? Because Fanning has a good chance to rack up catches without David Njoku in this game. He already had a pretty nice target share last week. I think he had 10 targets. Harold Fannin, what was it last week? David Njoku might miss this game, which would free up 6-ish targets. He had 10 targets last week. And this week, they won't have David Njoku. That's definitely appealing. But, man, you take a guy like Sam Laporta, who's having a really good season, and you put him in a shootout like this against the Buccaneers. Sam Laporta's getting you 11+ PPR points, 5+ targets per game. He's seeing 20% of the targets. The matchup is nice. The Buccaneers are a friendly matchup. They're allowing the 14th most PPR points per game, 12th most PPR points per catch. Kyle Pitts did well. Dallas Goedert did well. AJ Barner did well. Jake Tunges all did well. The only guys who really didn't do something against the Bucs are Dalton Schultz, who really doesn't do much to begin with, and Mason Taylor, who's been very kind of hit or miss this season. So I would have a really tough time not going Sam Laporta here. Fannin is probably a better bet for targets, but man, you take the target plus touchdown plus yardage upside for Laporta in this game. I'm going Sam Laporta. I feel pretty good about that one. I'm going to go 75 to 25% on that one. Elio says, good morning, bro. Good morning, Elio. Thank you for tuning in, brother. Should I start Johnston or Dobbs? You got to go Johnston here. I know he's coming off the hamstring injury, but he's been removed from the injury report. That suggests that it was a very mild. They played it safe last week. They held him out. He should be good to go. That Chargers-Colts game should be a really competitive game. It could be a low-key shootout, right? We have a nice 48.5 over-under. Both teams have a nice implied total over of 23 or more points. The Colts are giving up the 4th most fantasy points per game. Quentin Johnson is quietly, or maybe not quietly, it feels quietly to me, but he's balling right now. He's having a great season. Let me pull him up real quick. Is actually, if I am not mistaken, he's leading the Chargers wide receivers in fantasy points. He's averaging 17 plus PPR points per game. And it's not just boom or bust off of touchdowns, because he's getting you 8+ targets per game as well. He scored 14 to 16 points in 2 games, 23 to 25 points in 2 games. And then he mixed in that random low of 8.9 in week 5. It's not my favorite thing that his worst game is the last time he was on the field. So he's theoretically cold coming into this game, but still, man, 7+ targets in 4 or 5 games. He's seeing 23% of Justin Herbert's targets. The Colts are allowing the 4th most PPR points per game. You got to love this spot for Quentin Johnson. It's a possible shootout. The game should be competitive. The Chargers will have to throw. Packers might not have to throw. Romeo Dobbs is never a very high ceiling guy. I'm going Quentin Johnson, and I feel very 99 to 1 about that one. Oh, my Lord. The next comment on here is my wife, who apparently is watching, does not miss the mustache. She will swear up and down until the day she dies that she doesn't love the mustache. But I think she's lying. And I will say, I'll leave it at this. I won't get into the details, but the mustache is undefeated. That's all I'm saying. Okay? Thank you for tuning in, wife, upstairs. I don't know if you can hear me downstairs, but here we go. All right. Alex wants to know, pick 2 tight ends, full PPR, Hill, like Taysom Hill? That's got to be Taysom Hill, not Julian Hill. That wouldn't be Julian Hill. Sanders, Jatavian Sanders, Tyler Higbee, and AJ Barner. I don't want to pick 2. I don't want to do this one. Can I skip this one? I need to come up with a skip your turn card. I don't want to do this one. Look, here's my philosophy. Assuming this is Taysom Hill, I hope I'm not blanking on a different Hill, but I'm guessing that's Taysom Hill. Generally, my philosophy with Taysom Hill is if you don't have a clearly better option, a George Kittle, a Trey McBride, a Brock Bowers, or even Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce, you have Taysom Hill here mixed in with a bunch of big time question marks. I'm definite if that's Taysom Hill, I'm putting him in. It's like, yes, he could get you a 0, but he could also get you 20 points off of 2 rushing touchdowns because he's a tight end that runs with the ball. So if that's Taysom Hill, he's going to be option. The ceiling is much bigger than all these other guys. Now, Jatavian Sanders, this will be his first game back off of an injury. He actually quietly had a really nice game earlier in the season before he got hurt. Yeah, he's dealing with a high ankle sprain. I never love that. CD, you can ask any Twitter doctor, but a high ankle sprain is never a good thing for wide receivers, or anybody, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends. It definitely saps effectiveness. There's some re-injury risk there. It kept him out of week 4, week 5, week 6. He could be limited in week 7. We don't know anything about snap counts. And even if he does play full snaps, he could be limited in terms of his effectiveness, his ability to move, etc. And that's a shame because his week 2 was exciting. He had 9 targets, 7 catches, 54 yards. He very much balled out. But then the Panthers now have Jatavian Sanders is back, but Ted McMillan is starting to find his groove a little bit. Xavier Legette is still getting targets. They're bringing back Jalen Coker. It's hard to feel particularly optimistic about Jatavian Sanders. I have him labeled as somebody as a risky tight end number 2, someone that's better to keep an eye on than somebody to put into my lineup. The matchup is fine, right? The Jets are limiting tight ends to the 9th fewest yards, but they're otherwise silver plattering the 14th most catches, most touchdowns, and 5th most PPR points per game. And then we got Higbee and Barner. Now, Higbee's not an option anymore, considering that Rams game has begun. So that might change things here a little bit. But then AJ Barner for the Seattle Seahawks. What did I write about him? If I'm not mistaken, he's been very touchdown or bust this year. AJ Barner he's technically averaging 10 plus PPR points per game, but he's doing that on less than 4 targets per game. Okay, he has 4 touchdowns. He's only seeing 12% of Seattle's targets, and it's already a low volume offense. The game is going to be a low scoring game. We're not expecting a lot of touchdowns there, and he's a touchdown or bust streamer. The matchup versus the Texans is brutal. The Texans are really, really tough on tight ends. 2nd fewest PPR points per catch, 6th fewest PPR points per game. Taysom Hill is the only obvious one here. And then from there, I'm hoping you already picked Higbee, and he's already in there. I'm guessing you didn't. So I would say Hill, and then Seahawks are projected for 22-ish points. Panthers are going to be right around there too. I would go with AJ Barner and just hope he finds the end zone. Like, I'm sorry to say it that way, but that's kind of where we're at. You just got to hope he finds the end zone. I'd be fine with you going Jatavian Sanders there instead, because it's very 50-50. I mean, this one's about as 50-50 as it gets. We just don't know. We have no clue if Sanders is going to be limited in snaps, effectiveness. I'm going to go AJ Barner here and just pray to the fantasy gods that he finds the end zone. Hopefully that helps, Alex. All right. What do we got next here? We got Jeff Rogers wants to know Kendrick Bourne or Kayshon Boutte. We're going Kendrick Bourne. Still no Ricky Pearsall. George Kittle's back. That hurts. There's no way around that. But Kendrick Bourne is hot. He's en fuego. He's clearly got a great rapport with Mac Jones. That 49ers Falcons game does have a hint of shootout potential to it. 47.5 over under. The 49ers have a really strong implied total of 25 points. The Falcons aren't bad at 22.5. If the Falcons can just be better than mediocre, this game could go back and forth. This game could shoot out. Now, the one thing I will say about Kendrick Bourne is that the matchup isn't particularly pretty. The Falcons are really tough on wide receivers, 6th fewest fantasy points per game. But if this game shoots out and the 49ers score 3+ touchdowns, 4+ touchdowns like they're expected to, Kendrick Bourne is going to be involved in a big way, right? I mean, you can't really say with 100% confidence that Juwan Jennings is the wide receiver 1 right now, because he hasn't been. And with no Ricky Pearsall, it's like George Kittle, and then it's either, Christian McCaffrey as well, and then it's either Kendrick Bourne or Juwan Jennings. And to date, it's been Kendrick Bourne, not Juwan Jennings. And Juwan Jennings is averaging more injuries per game than targets per game. All right, let's just say that. But then you got Kayshon Boutte. We've talked about this game, right? The Patriots were just not expecting to have to throw the ball all that much. And we can't pretend that Boutte's been this like surefire thing this year, because he hasn't. He has 2 good games, right? His first game and his last game, week 1 and week 6, if I'm not mistaken. Everything else in between, he boomed for 16 points in week 1, and then he gave you 26 points last week. But don't forget that between those 2 games, he sandwiched those 2 games with 4 busts under 9 points between weeks 2 and 5. Okay, there's more evidence of bust than there is of boom. And if the Patriots aren't going to throw the ball 30 times, 35 times per game, I'm going to go with Kayshon Boutte here. I know the matchup's tough, but if that game shoots out, he should be involved there. Hope that helps, Jeff. Lamont says, good luck to you, sir. I hope it all works out for you. I know if I recall, yours was the Jamar Chase one. That's a brutal start. It's always the worst, right? When your opponent just dumps on you on Thursday night, you just feel gross about your matchup. But good luck, sir. I hope it works out for you. Griff says, thanks, boss. Thank you. I really appreciate you tuning in, being patient. I know sometimes these answers could take a bit, but again, that's just me trying to give you my full attention and my full process as I walk through these. WCP wants to know, hey guys, I'm prepared to pull off a big trade. Let's do it. I'll give up Saquon and Igbuka to get CMC. What do y'all think? As of this moment, totally fine with it. CMC's a beast. Saquon's a beast too as well. So is Egbuka. I mean, you're giving up a lot, but you're getting the best player in fantasy football right now. The one thing I will say, I am always, always, always nervous about the idea of trading for a running back that has a ton of mileage and injury concerns this early in the season. I would usually want to wait until right before the deadline to make my move. Almost all of my leagues, I don't even bother trading until for most of my like dynasty leagues, it's like week 14. Public leagues, I think it's closer to week 11. I might be wrong about that. But my point is, I typically don't want to make a trade for a guy like Christian McCaffrey until we're at the like last possible moment, right? There's a ton of mileage on Christian McCaffrey. There's a reason that I have Brian Robinson on as many rosters as possible. I hope he makes it through because he's a cheat code and he's killing it. But just thinking about the numbers, the possibilities, I'm nervous about trading for a guy like that this early, especially when you're giving up. Like Saquon hasn't been destroying the league, but he's still been like solid. I know it hasn't been the same as last year, which we predicted, by the way. If you had the draft dominator, you would have known that. Not you, but anybody. But yeah, I'd be careful about trading for a guy like CMC at this point. All right. Here we go. We got Jordan Smith wants to know half PPR, Jalen Waddle or Rashid Shaheed. I got to go Jalen Waddle here. That target share, he's getting that top tier target share without Tyreek Hill. And that matters. That matters because even when you have a bad team, a bad game, if they're force feeding him 8+ targets per game, he's going to get fantasy points. Shaheed, I mean, generally speaking, the Saints are rarely an offense that I'm trying to get into my lineup. No offense, Derek Devereaux, you my boy, if you're watching this, but I think you can agree that we're not necessarily trying to get New Orleans Saints into our lineups this year. Rashid Shaheed's been solid, right? He's getting you 11+ PPR points, 6 targets. He's predictably, as he has been his entire career, he's very boom or bust, right? He got you 15 points in week 2. He got you 21 points in week 5, but he surrounded those 2 booms with 4 busts between 6 to 9 very nice PPR points. But ultimately, you have the sure thing, the most dangerous words in fantasy football, but you have the target share of Jalen Waddle. That's the route that I'm going with this one. Oh, Alex came back and said Kyle Williams. Got it. I was definitely not figuring out. Yeah, Kyle Williams is not really involved in that offense right now. So until we see him get involved in that offense, there's no way I'm even thinking about him for a fantasy football lineup. Not yet, at least. All right, a couple more questions here, guys. And then I have to hop. I actually have to set my own lineups, and I have 24 of them to get to. So, but let me continue down this attempted rapid fire path. Tim Mullen, thank you for tuning in, wants to know, start 2 of 3, half PPR, that matters. Lad McConkey, AJ Brown, Chris Olave. Woo-wee. We're coming in with the big names here. If it's half PPR, we're definitely placing a little bit more of a lean towards touchdowns. And for me, I know it hasn't been as pretty as we wanted, but Lad McConkey needs to be in there. We talked about that Chargers-Colts game. Expected to be a shootout. Colts giving up, I think it was the 4th most PPR points per game. There's just a lot to like about Chargers wide receivers in general. If I have Quentin Johnston, if I have Lad McConkey, if I have Keenan Allen, I want those guys in my lineup. So he's in there. And then you got to go between AJ Brown and Chris Olave. Chris Olave is one of those guys that's been super steady in terms of floor, but then like there's really no ceiling there, again, because of the Saints offense, right? It's not the most conducive offense for fantasy football, but he's been steady. He is getting you 13+ PPR points per game, 10+ targets. So dude's averaging dang near 11 targets per game. He has 10 to 14 targets and 6 to 10 catches in 5 of the 6 games that he's played. It's just the ceiling isn't quite there, right? He scored 11 to 13 points in 4 of 6 games, very sturdy floor, but his highs this week this year are 15+, and he has 2 games of 15.7, 15.8 points. The ceiling's just not quite there. Now, his matchup is pretty solid. The Bears are actually allowing the most PPR points per catch to opposing wide receivers, 3.68 PPR points per catch. And you take a guy like Chris Olave getting, 5 to 6 catches or 6 to 10 catches in every game. Now, it's not that simple, right? Touchdowns, yardage, those things matter, but it's an easy week to feel okay about Chris Olave. Chris Olave is averaging an absurd 33% of the Saints targets. That's pretty darn good. Ultimately, you have to make the decision here, Tim, of if you want ceiling or floor, right? We're locking in Ladd McConkey. Chris Olave's got a much better ceiling this year than A.J. Brown does. He just does. But A.J. Brown does bring that ceiling. And we talked earlier, there was an A.J. Brown question. We talked about the fact that he is getting, 8+ targets per game. Like, the targets are there. He's just not catching them. It's 55%. So he should have a similar floor based on his target share. He just hasn't. If you're going with the floor play, you're going Olave. If you're going with the ceiling play, you're going A.J. Brown. Okay? Hope that helps. YT Skello, I have no clue if I said that right, wants to know Mac Jones, Carson Wentz. Mac Jones, Carson Wentz. Mac Jones, Carson Wentz. That one is not easy. Let's check out the games real quick. Eagles, Vikings. What in the world? Who's down here? What are you doing? Daughter's coming down. She's got to get her video games. All right. Eagles, Vikings. Not really anything to get too excited about with this game. 43.5 point over under. Very competitive. 1.5 points on each side. 21, 22-ish points on each side. Carson Wentz does have a nice matchup. He's got the revenge game going for him against the Eagles, the team that drafted and then dumped him for Jalen Hurts. But then you got Mac Jones, right? And we talked about this game being a possible shootout. Now, the thing you don't love about this for Mac Jones is the matchup, right? The Falcons are holding quarterbacks to the 4th fewest fantasy points per game. One of the tabs on the week winner is the streamers and stashes tabs. If you're ever coming in, if you ever need to find a plug and play defense, you ever need to find a plug and play kicker, tight end, quarterback, it's all in here. Mac Jones is on the list. Carson Wentz should be on the list. Man, I don't love this one. I don't love this one in general. Let me dive into each guy here real quickly. All right, we talked about the game. We're expecting 15 to 20 points out of Mac Jones here, even despite the tough matchup. But, man, it is tough. The Falcons are holding quarterbacks to the fewest passing yards, 14th fewest passing touchdowns, 4th fewest fantasy points per game. They held Josh Allen to just 15. Marcus Mariota got 14. Bryce Young got 11. J.J. McCarthy got 4. Baker Mayfield got 22. So here's the thing. These three guys, Marcus Mariota, Bryce Young, J.J. McCarthy, it's not like we're talking about them holding Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Jaden Daniels. So is that matchup as tough as it looks? TBD, right? Then you got Carson Wentz. I was just looking for Philadelphia. Apparently, I haven't updated my brain yet. His matchup is a little bit better, right? Eagles are a friendly matchup. This is important. The Eagles present a friendly matchup more so for quarterbacks that will take off and run with the ball because they're allowing the 7th most rushing yards and 4th most rushing touchdown. But when it comes to pocket passers, which Carson Wentz isn't necessarily a pocket passer, it's not like he's a statue back there. He can move. But when you look at their numbers through the air specifically, they're actually holding quarterbacks to the 10th fewest passing yards, 8th fewest passing touchdowns, and ultimately they allow the 15th most fantasy points per game when you combine all of that. Me personally, if I'm making this decision, I'm going to fade. No, that's not the right word. I'm going to take my chances against the tough matchup, and I'm going to play the game environment. This is a nice game environment for the 49ers. They're projected for 25 points. This game could shoot out if the Falcons are simply just a little bit better than mediocre. It sets up a little bit better for Mac Jones than it does for Carson Wentz. But this is one of those that's very much a coin flip, very much 50-50. I'm going to say it's 51% Mac Jones, 49% Carson Wentz. Hopefully that helps. Whichever way you go here, I hope it works out for you. By the way, guys, I haven't mentioned it too much. This doesn't need to be me reading the week winner to you. Anybody in the world can have access to this every single week. It has data for every single player that you could possibly want. And I'm handing it over to you for 50% off. I'm giving you half off every single month. Scan that. Where is it? There we go. That QR code right up there. Or just go to wap.com/BBFF. Select the monthly package. Enter promo code YouTube. YOUTUBE, and you're going to get half off, 50% off every single month for as long as you wish to remain a member. That's just $10 a month, by the way, $9.99 per month. And that's less than what? One trip to McDonald's. That's going to get you access to this, the week winner. It's going to get you access to our Discord server, which I haven't even shown you. That the Discord server is awesome. There's 180 or 120 plus 121 members in there, bonding over fantasy football, talking basketball, betting, DFS, golf, everything, and helping each other dominate in there. It's going to get you access to our monthly jersey giveaways, by the way. At the end of this month, the very last episode in October, I'm going to be giving away an autographed NFL jersey right here live on this show. So definitely scan that QR code and enter promo code YouTube if you like saving 50%. All right. My guy, Derek Devereaux. So I guess you were watching. Sorry for all the Saints slander. But he says, good morning, everyone. Stuck with a wide receiver and flex decision between Keenan Allen, Kendrick Bourne, or DJ Moore in a PPR league. Could also play Dowdle. Yeah, that's the big. I'm surprised I haven't had more Rico Dowdle questions here. But not sure how that backfield split would be. Keenan Allen is one of those guys I feel like you have to have in there. Based on that Chargers-Colts game, Colts giving up fourth most PPR points per game, I would feel really excited, really good about having Keenan Allen in my lineup. But it sounds like you also need another one. Now, I can't believe I'm saying this because DJ Moore was a fourth-round pick. Kendrick Bourne was an undrafted free agent in fantasy football this year, but I'd probably go Kendrick Bourne over DJ Moore at this point. Like, it just hasn't happened for DJ Moore, and at some point, it's just, is it not going to happen? Rico Dowdle, he's going to be involved, right? We're thinking the worst case scenario for Rico Dowdle is that he splits the backfield. Worst case, he should be a good bet for 10 plus touches. So theoretically, there's going to be that safer bet for volume than Kendrick Bourne or DJ Moore. DJ Moore hasn't been a high volume guy this year anyway. So if you're going to go like the floor route mixed with possible ceiling, I'd still probably be going Rico Dowdle over Kendrick Bourne and DJ Moore. But I understand the heartburn of like, oh God, I don't know if I want to put Rico Dowdle in there. That's a tough decision. But me personally, I'm probably going Keenan and Rico Dowdle. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully I didn't just make it more confusing. Joe Egan wants to know, hey, brother, need big help this week. Already trailing by 38 because of Jamar Chase. I'm with you, brother. Let's figure this out. I can't miss this week. Bench one. Rome Odunze is one of those guys I can't really bench this year. The upside in that Ben Johnson offense is through the roof, and we've already seen it. Like, Odunze's had some pretty big weeks. Rice. Oh, my God, Rashee Rice. My brain, wow, okay. Rashee Rice, Drake London, JSN. What in the world? Dude, this team is insane. You have Rome Odunze, Rashee Rice, Drake London, JSN, and my quarterback is Caleb. Holy cripes. I don't want to bench one of these guys. Drake London, you can't bench. That guy gets hella targets. Rashee Rice, JSN, you can't bench. That's an automatic start type of guy. Holy crap. Rome Odunze. Let me think for a minute. We're not going to bench Rome Odunze, right? I mean, we got to bench somebody. Whew. This one's tough. All right. Dude's balling. 17 points per game, 8 targets per game, 25% of the team targets. The matchup is mediocre at worst, pretty up and down. The game environment, that game has dropped to a 3.5 point game. which, by the way, Jake Moody is my kicker of the week. If anybody's looking for a kicker, it's Jake Moody this week. And I don't just say that out of gut. I have the streamers and stashes tab. Quick sidebar. I have been working on a kicker research project since week 1 of last year, trying to identify kickers that'll score 11 or more fantasy points per game, or not per game, in their upcoming game, 11 or more fantasy points. And I have found some trends that are surprisingly accurate, or they hit pretty frequently. And I won't get into the details. If you want the details, again, you can scan that QR code, enter promo code YouTube. But the one guy that checks all of the boxes this week is Jake Moody for the Chicago Bears. So if you're just flipping a coin at kicker, give Jake Moody a quick look. That's not what you asked, though. This is me trying to procrastinate and avoid this question, because I'm leaning towards benching Rashee Rice here for the second time this episode, which I want to be clear to anybody watching. Rashee Rice is not a guy that I ordinarily would want to bench, but you have to have one of these guys on the bench. Like, there's no choice here. You look at the Bears, right? The Chiefs are projected to score 28.5 points. That's a lot. That's 4+ touchdowns. Rashee Rice could easily be a part of that. The spread suggests they're not going to have to throw much, right? Patrick Mahomes theoretically shouldn't have to do too much. The Bears have a nice implied total, 24 points. The game is expected to be at least somewhat competitive. Drake London, they're going to be behind theoretically. They might have to throw. That game could shoot out. That's a guy you can't bench. You can't bench JSN. The guy has been so steady, so consistent this year. I mean, 21 points per game, 9.3 targets per game. He's got 13 plus PPR points in all 6. He's getting 36% of the targets. You can't bench him. I hate to say it. Rashee Rice is the guy that I would just kind of sit on the bench and wait and see. But my friend Joe, you have a great problem on your hands, right? It's not like you're stuck starting Chris Moore this week. This is a great problem to have. You need maximum upside. That matters. I just think, it's all of these are high upside guys. I think it's got to be Rashee Rice. I don't want to bench Rashee Rice, but that's where we're at, man. I hope that helps. There's just no world where I'm benching JSN. I'm not benching Drake London in this one. I suppose you could make the case for Rome Odunze, but in my eyes, you can't make a case for Rashee Rice over Rome Odunze. Right now, at least. I'm benching Rashee Rice. Hope that helps, man. Good problem to have. Great problem to have. All right, what do we got next? Let's see. We buy homes near you wants to know. Morning, brother. Good morning. I have Trey McBride rostered as my tight end. Nice. With Green Bay's DST. Nice. These points will offset. Not necessarily. Should I keep GB roster or pick up Browns? So the Browns, Browns, Bears, Panthers, or Atlanta. Don't worry too much about. I understand what you're saying about if Trey McBride scores touchdowns, that hurts the Packers. I get that. But remember, it's more about. Don't think about that too much. I would still be more than comfortable with the Packers. Now, that said, I like the Browns a lot more. So I mentioned to you guys that I have a streamers and stashes tab. You can come in here. I got wide receivers to keep your eye on, running backs that you should stash on your bench before kickoff, quarterbacks if you need to plug and play, tight ends if you need to plug and play, kickers if you need to plug and play. But I also do defenses, and it's usually ranked top to bottom. Browns are my number one. If you can scoop them up, Browns would be my number one pickup for sure. Dolphins are expected to score 16 points this week. And that game in particular is going to be ugly, especially if there's going to be, if there is going to be rain, if there is going to be wind, there's just not going to be a lot of touchdowns here. And assuming you're in the type of league that points allowed matters, I'm going with the Browns here for sure over the Packers. I do like the Packers. They're on my list, but I would go with the Browns here. All right. Man, what do we got going on here? Ripple FX Yeah, I got to wrap this thing up in a couple minutes, guys. So I'll try and speed through some of these. Otten or Waller. So the thing with Waller, guys, he's balling right now, but it's all touchdowns. It's all touchdowns. And it's not like he's getting 6, 7, 8 targets per game. It's just he's got 4 touchdowns in 3 games. He's much more touchdown or bust than people recognize. And we're not expecting the Dolphins to score many touchdowns here. So that's now, I will say we're expecting his target share to continue to increase, right? We've seen his playing time increase week over week. Tyreek Hill is not there. It's certainly likely that Darren Waller is going to end up a top 3 option in the target totem pole throughout the rest of the season after Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane. But as of right now, it's not a target thing for Darren Waller. It's a touchdown thing. And we've already talked about this game. It's disgusting, right? Dolphins, Browns, we're not expecting a lot of touchdowns. Browns are very mediocre against tight ends. But then you got Cade Otton. The volume hasn't been there for him. Now, it could be because there's no Chris Godwin. There probably won't be a Emeka Egbuka, but Mike Evans is back. And he could just ultimately just dominate targets. He could get 30% of the targets this week, and nobody would be surprised. But you also have the shootout appeal of this, right? It's reasonable to say you're going to see a similar raw target number between Cade Otton and Darren Waller, right? Especially if Mike Evans is any kind of limited at all. Cade Otton could get some targets here. So if you assume those things are pretty close to equal, then you look at touchdown upside. That Buccaneers-Lions game is on the high end, and then the Dolphins-Browns game is on the low end. I'm going to go with Cade Otton here, just in terms of sheer upside. I wouldn't blame you for going Waller just because he's done more on limited opportunities this year. But if it's me, if I'm flipping a coin anyway at tight end, I'm going to swing for the fences. And that in this scenario is Cade Otton. So hopefully that helps. Hugo wants to know, is Goddard a safe option? You guys, Goddard is career year. Like, he's having a career year, and it seems like it's kind of quiet. It seems like nobody's really talking about it, but the dude is like balling. 15 plus PPR points, 6.6 targets per game, right? A lot of times you see tight ends and it's like AJ Barner. He's averaging over 10 points per game, but it's because of touchdowns. It's not targets. That's the sort of thing that like evens out. Eventually goose eggs start to show up. But Goddard is getting the work. He's getting 6+ targets per game. He's seeing 23% of the targets. So yeah, if you're asking if he's a safer play, he's never felt safe. But this year, if you only use data, stats, and information to make these determinations, yeah, he's got a safe floor. He's a safe option. George Kittle, if you've been following me for at least since this summer, you know that I was overwhelmingly high on George Kittle coming into the season. I literally, in my draft dominator, had Brock Bowers ranked as the first tight end, and then I had Trey McBride, George Kittle, literally back to back. That's how high I was on George Kittle. It sounds like there's not going to be a snap count. If we should have the George Kittle that we know and love. There's nothing that's going to feel comfortable. It's going to feel scary because, I mean, you got a 30-plus-year-old tight end coming off it. Hamstrings are scary to begin with. When they're in the 30s, they're even more scary. See Mike Evans. But if Kittle's going to Kittle, you got that shootout against the Falcons. If you can't stomach the idea of putting Kittle in your lineup and potentially like the hamstring, and you want to go with Goddard, that's a perfectly fine problem to have because Goddard's been awesome. I'm still putting, to me, I'm putting Kittle in because he's one of the few tight ends that should be like league-winning type of tight end. There's no Ricky Pearsall. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk and all those guys are still not there. Kittle could and theoretically should be the team's de facto number one wide receiver moving forward. That game is expected to be a bit of a shootout with the Falcons. I'm going to go Kittle. I'm not going to fault you if you go Goddard, but I'm going to go Kittle. Whoo, baby. How many more? Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get through all these guys. I'll do my best. But like I said, if you want access, just grab it yourself. You don't need me reading this to you. Grab it. And if you still have questions, drop it in the Discord server. And we'll help you out there. We got a lot of people that are just as sharp, if not sharper than me, helping with some of those questions in the Discord server, right? Everybody, you guys have questions every week. Where do you go? Do you go to free like Facebook groups and Reddit groups that do more harm than good? Or do you want to go to a Discord server that's packed with a bunch of friendly human beings that know a thing or two about fantasy football and can help each other dominate? Just saying. I'm just saying. All right, here we go. What do we got next? Jacob Ander wants to know, need a desperation flex in PPR, Cooper Kupp, Jerry Jeudy, Chris Moore. That's the name I was going to throw out there. Kayshon Boutte. I'm going Chris Moore. If you're like, that's going to be the unsafest option out of all these. I want to make that clear. Like, it's entirely possible Chris Moore scores significantly less points, 0 points, than these other guys. You're not going to get the same type of ceiling with Cooper Kupp in his game, Jerry Jeudy in his game, Kayshon Boutte in his game. I'm going to go Chris Moore. Cowboys are getting destroyed by wide receivers. That game is expected to be a shootout. The ceiling leans towards Chris Moore. If you don't want to go ceiling and you want to go floor, that's going to be Cooper Kupp theoretically, but I mean, even his floor is not very high, so it's not like we're talking about a lot there. But give me Chris Moore. All right, what do we got here? Kamani Vidal, J.K. Dobbins, or Emmanuel Wilson if Jacob sits. Yeah, Emmanuel Wilson's a great pickup. I don't think A, I think Jacobs is going to go. B, I wouldn't be going. Oh my gosh, told you, exhausting. I wouldn't be going Emmanuel Wilson over these other guys. I mean, this game sets up really, really well for J.K. Dobbins. Where's the Broncos game? 7-point favorites, right? That suggests plenty of rushing volume. It's not like theoretically they shouldn't be playing from behind, needing to dial up 40, 50 plus passes. They should be able to keep the ball on the ground. Giants have been a pretty friendly matchup for running backs up to this point. 11th most PPR points per game. I got to tell you, though, man, it's really hard to keep Kamani Vidal on the bench. It wasn't even a split with Hassan Haskins last week. He was the guy. He was the RB1, unquestioned. There's a reason he was the number one waiver wire pickup this today. I got to go Kamani Vidal here, only because it's going to be a shoot. Well, here, let me say this. If you're going for floor, I'm going to go with J.K. Dobbins. He's had a solid floor this year. He's a very steady, like 14, 15 point type of guy. Not necessarily a big ceiling, but he's had a steady floor. They should be able to keep the ball on the ground. The Giants are a friendly matchup. There's nothing at all wrong with using J.K. Dobbins. Now, if you want to go the ceiling route, understanding that Vidal could easily score just 8, 9, 10 points while Dobbins scores 14, it's also possible that Kamani Vidal pops up to 20 plus points just based on the game flow of this game, right? The Chargers are favored, not by much, but this game should be a shootout. 48 plus points. Each team is projected for 23 or more. Now, the Colts have been tough on running backs, right? 8th fewest PPR points per game allowed to running backs. Vidal is not going to be the safe. Dobbins is going to be much, much safer. Vidal is going to be the upside play. So I would say determine which one you want. Dobbins is the one that feels like the best choice of the three, but Vidal does have that ceiling working for him. So good luck with that one. Let's see. Here we go. I didn't read through this yet, but I got 2 trade off. Tony Nelson wants to know, I got 2 trade offers. Effectively, I'll take both or take neither, so I'll combine them into one trade. All right, I like that. Sutton and Chase Brown for Montgomery and Olave. I would... Oh boy. I'll take the Sutton side of this one. I would take Sutton over Olave, and Montgomery versus Brown is close enough, and I'm optimistic that Brown can still can turn it around in Joe Flacco's offense. We saw a glimpse of that on Thursday. I would want the Cortland Sutton and Chase Brown side of this. I'll say it's close. It's not like sometimes people ask me trade advice and I'm like, oh, this one feels like a no-brainer. This isn't that. I wouldn't say this is a no-brainer, but I'd call it like 53 to 47%. Hopefully that helps. All right, what do we got here? I'm going to give it 4 more, it looks like, or 3 more. And then we're going to wrap this thing up. Tony, okay. This goes to Tony's question about trade offers. So his wide receivers, he's got Nico, Pearsall, Sutton, Dobbs, and Booty. Running backs, Taylor, Dobbins, Swift, Pollard, Chase Brown. Yeah, this doesn't change anything. I'm still going to stick with the Cortland Sutton, Chase Brown side. Hopefully that helps. Hugo says, right on, brother. Thank you. Might move with Kittle. I'm sure he's back and ready to dominate. Yeah, man. Dude, you're not going to go wrong starting. Well, I shouldn't say that. You can always go wrong starting anybody, but Dallas Goedert it's a good problem to have trying to choose between those two guys. But yeah, it's hard to have Kittle on the bench because the dude could literally put up wide receiver 1 numbers as a tight end. Which, to be fair, Dallas Goedert's already doing that. So yeah, that's a tough one. Let's see. Joe says, appreciate your help, brother. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you staying patient. I know sometimes it takes me a minute to get to some of these questions, but here we go. Yeah. So Tony says, I do disagree that Bootie's ceiling isn't as high as Chris Moore's this week. Bootie is more talented and the Titans don't have a great defense. Yeah, I would overall in general, Kayshon Boutte has a higher ceiling as a football player. This week in particular, I would say Chris Moore has the higher ceiling, but you are definitely more than welcome to disagree with that for sure. I get it. Like there's nothing at all that's comfortable about starting Chris Moore for crying out loud. All right. K-Dog says, what's up, Mikey? Need wide receiver 2, full PPR. First of all, what's up, K-Dog? Thanks for tuning in. Who got the biggest boom and highest floor? All right. So we'll just go one by one here. Jalen Coker, the floor is 0 there. Like we don't know what to expect with Jalen Coker. We don't know how he's going to fit into that offense. I'm optimistic. I feel really good about Jalen Coker moving forward. I wouldn't feel comfortable putting him in my week 7 lineup. We just don't know how he's going to fit in. We don't know if he's going to be limited in any way coming off the injury. He's not going to be the wide receiver 1 for sure. They spent an expensive draft pick on Xavier Legette. They want to see what they can get out of him. Jatavian Sanders is back. The floor is very low for Jalen Coker. There's some ceiling there, but not as high as you would want it to be in week 7. Trey Tucker is going to offer, he's never going to be much of a floor guy, but he does have a massive ceiling most weeks. I mean, it was only a couple weeks ago. He scored, I think, 40 PPR points. He had like 3 touchdowns in a, I believe it was a blowout loss, which is what we're expecting here from the Raiders against the Chiefs. Could be one of those things where if Geno has to throw 40, 50, not 60, but 40, 50 times, Trey Tucker's been involved. He's been a big part of that offense, especially if Jacoby Myers can't go. He's going to give you I think he gives you a better floor and better ceiling than Jalen Coker. Okay. So right now we got Tucker over Coker. Alec Ayomanor, without Calvin Ridley, I mean, that definitely helps, but man, that offense is just so not good. Now that could change, right? They made some coaching changes. Hopefully they start to move in the right direction, but still Titans are projected to score less than 18 points. Patriots are mediocre against wide receivers. It's not like we're expecting this massive day out of Alec Ayomanor. I would go Tucker so far, Ayomanor next, and then Jalen Coker. Alec Pierce, he should be a top 3 option in the Colts passing attack, and that game should be a shootout, which we talked about. This is one where the floor isn't going to be high. Alec Pierce is never going to be a big floor guy, but there is the ceiling. Like Alec Pierce has had some ceiling days in the past, especially in a shootout like this. There's some appeal there. So far I'd be going Trey Tucker, Alec Pierce, Ayomanor, Coker. Then we got Troy Franklin. So Troy Franklin is losing playing time right now. He actually played the exact same amount of snaps, if I'm not mistaken, last week as their rookie, Pat Bryant. Not saying he's losing his job. He's certainly getting a lot more targets and a lot more work than Pat Bryant is, but there was a point where Troy Franklin was playing like 81% of the snaps, and now he's down to like 56%. So that increases some volatility there, especially if he is losing playing time. Like if he's starting to fall down that depth chart, that's going to increase, that's going to lower the floor. Ceiling feels okay, right? Broncos are expected to score 23 points. Giants are they're a bottom 3 defense when it comes to defending wide receivers. You feel there is a nice ceiling there for Troy Franklin. I would go so far Tucker, Pierce, Franklin, and Yomanor Coker. Then we got Josh Reynolds. So Josh Reynolds, your only hope there is that he inherits some of the massive volume left behind with Garrett Wilson. But it's not like we're expecting the Jets to score a lot of points. And if they do, is it going to be Josh Reynolds or is it going to be Mason Taylor? Is it going to be Breece Hall? I don't feel particularly good about the floor or the ceiling for Josh Reynolds. I do think there's some sneaky appeal there if you're in a deep league and you're desperate, but I do think you have some better options here. Luke McCaffrey is probably the best option that I've seen so far in this list. No Terry McLaurin, no Deebo Samuel. That frees up. I sent out an alert yesterday to my members, which, by the way, another reason that you should scan that QR code and enter promo code BBF. Enter promo code YouTube to get 50% off every single month. But as I'm doing this research, as I'm finding things, I usually send an email blast and send an email alert to my subscribers. Yesterday, they got an email from me saying to pick up Emmanuel Wilson. They also got an email from me saying, hey, grab Chris Moore, grab Luke McCaffrey, grab Jalen Lane if you're in a pinch and need a wide receiver. We talked about this game, so I won't spend too much time there. Shootout with the Cowboys. Cowboys are terrible against wide receivers. And in that email I mentioned, it was over, I forget the number off the top of my head, but it's like 44% of the Commanders' targets are up for grabs with no Terry McLaurin, no Deebo Samuel. Could easily be Chris Moore, could be Jalen Lane, but it could definitely be Luke McCaffrey, and it could be a mixture of all those guys. McCaffrey's my favorite one so far. Oh, shoot, and then there's Chris Moore. I will say that I've been leaning Chris Moore over Luke McCaffrey for the simple fact that he's playing more snaps than McCaffrey is, but that could easily go the other way. Tez Johnson, less excited about Tez Johnson with Mike Evans being fully active. Now, Tez Johnson should still get plenty of run on the opposite side of Evans, assuming Egbuka sits, so there's some upside there. Pop Douglas is not somebody I'm chasing. He had a great week last week, but the dude is not, he's barely playing. He's playing almost no snaps. I shouldn't say almost no snaps, but it's only like 25 to 30%. Luther Burden, same thing. Plenty of upside. He's a guy I'm keeping an eye on, but not somebody I'd feel comfortable with in my lineup. So if we're grabbing 2 of these guys, I would grab one of those Commanders wide receivers, probably Chris Moore. But I'm totally fine with you going Luke McCaffrey if that's where you want to go. And then probably Trey Tucker. There's some appeal there for Tez Johnson, but I think Mike Evans, it feels like Mike Evans is just going to dominate targets there. So I'm going Chris Moore and Trey Tucker. Hopefully that helps. Whoo-wee. All right. Here we go. And then we got Bill or Breece, full PPR. Yeah, I mean, this one's kind of tough too, right? Because you got, again, we talked about that Cowboys Commanders game. Nice shootout. Cowboys are almost just as bad against running backs as they are against quarterbacks and wide receivers. No Deebo Samuel. They're going to need some of their other guys to step up in a big way. Bill should be pretty big part of that. Where's Washington? What game is that? Oh, looks like I have him in yellow. I thought I had him in green. Anyway, let me pull up JCM here real quick just to remind myself what we're dealing with. We talked plenty about the game. I won't spend much time there. He last week, Bill took command. Get it? Man, I'm tired. All right. Washington's backfield. He looks like he's going to be the guy moving forward. He does have a mouth-watering. It's a shootout. It's a nice matchup. Cowboys are allowing the 7th most PPR points per touch, the 5th most PPR points per game. The appeal with Breece Hall is that Garrett Wilson is not going to play in this game, meaning they're going to have to figure something else out on offense. Also, you'll recall that I mentioned he's number 1 on the touchdown regression cheat sheet, which shows you which players are mathematically likely to score touchdowns sooner rather than later. So Breece Hall could see an uptick in volume since they can't just pepper Garrett Wilson with targets. But other than that, it's not like there's a lot to be super excited about. He's a very talented player. There's that. But the game environment we already talked about, lower scoring game. The matchup itself is mediocre. I would probably just take the flyer and ride the upside of Bill. I'm probably going with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt there. It's so funny how this works, right? We all spend, what was Breece Hall this year? 2nd round pick, 3rd round pick. And then we get a couple weeks into the season and we're going for guys named Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. But to me, it's really hard to leave a guy like Bill on the bench in this environment and this setup. Whew. All right, y'all. I'm exhausted. I don't know how much more I got in me. And I thought I was going to get through all these, but they keep the questions do keep popping in here. Good morning, my guy. Flex 1 PPR, Chuba Hubbard, Rico, Pollard, or DJ Moore. I'm going to lean Rico in any Rico versus Hubbard dilemmas. After the last 2 weeks he had, I can't see the Panthers saying, all right, well, thank you for your service. We're going to go back to Chuba here really quickly. I think it's Rico's going to get a chance to maintain the hot hand. Ultimately, I think it's going to end up being a 50-50 split type thing. But if I have to pick one or the other, I'm going to go with Rico. Unfortunately, we don't really have any data to go off of. It does have to be a, what do you think will happen? I have a tough time seeing an NFL coach being like, all right, thanks for 400 plus scrimmage yards, but you're going to take a back seat now. Then you got Tony Pollard, who, by the way, saw less work than Tyjae Spears last week. So he's going to be out on the outs here. And then you got DJ Moore, who we've talked about plenty in today's episode. If I'm flexing one, I'm going to go with Rico here. I like Rico over Hubbard, and then I like Rico over Pollard. DJ Moore, you can make a case for in terms of upside, but Rico is going to bring you a better floor with similar upside. Okay. Wow, K-Dog, this is way, way, way too nice. I appreciate that. I'm glad to see we're on the same page there. Washington wide receivers, Tucker, calling me the GOAT that means a lot. It's way too kind, but I really appreciate it. Thank you. Daniel Cap says, I'm playing Luke over Tet today. Sauce shutting down wide receiver 1. Yeah, man, you would have to have massive cojones to play Luke McCaffrey over Tet McMillan, in my opinion, but I'd get it. Sauce can definitely, there's got to be a metaphor here. Sauce, like smother. You'd smother a wing in sauce. Like there's got to be a metaphor here. I get it, but I say it takes massive cojones to pull that off. Luke McCaffrey's been very touchdown or bust, but it's hard to get targets when Deebo Samuel is dominating those. It's just, that one's tough. I would have a really tough time pulling the trigger on that one, but hey, you do your thing, boss. Goes Chris Moore into a lineup when everybody else is like, who the heck is Chris Moore? Tony says Tony says Daniel, start your studs. Yeah, man. It's like I said, big cojones if you're gonna go Luke, but hey, man, shoot your shot. All right, these have to be the last two, guys. These have to be the last two. I'm running on E here, but King Ray Traz says Jay Williams. So that's got to be, is that Javonte or Jameson? Because that matters. JCM. So far we're doing running back. So I'm guessing it's Javonte. Achan, Mike Evans, Q Johnson, sit 1. Hot dang, dude. I don't want to sit any of those. You got to sit out of those. Out of those, I think I'm sitting Quentin Johnston. It's either Quentin Johnson or JCM, assuming that we're not talking about. If that's not Jameson, if it's Jameson Williams, we're sitting him. If it's Javonte Williams, he has to play. Achan has to be in there. Evans in the shootout, possible target hog. Quentin Johnston's been balling, but he is coming off a dud. He's coming off a hamstring, just like Mike Evans is. Achane has to be in. Javonte has to be in. I'm probably going to sit. JCM is going to bring you a theoretically safer floor than Quentin Johnston is, and there should be a similar ceiling. So I'm going to go Quentin Johnston on the bench, but I got to tell you, King, there's a great problem to have. Like, these are all, I feel good. I want all of these players in my lineup, right? Sometimes we get these questions and it's like, pick one of these gross players. This is more like, I want all of these in my lineup. So it's a good problem to have. All right, then we got CMass wants to know, start Barner or Otten. I think I had this one very similar to this earlier. We're going to go Otten. We talked about AJ Barner being very kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Misleading tight end option right now. Like, he's getting you 10 plus PPR points per game, but he's doing it on touchdowns. Which, like, I say that like it's a bad thing. Mathematically, the rate that he's scoring touchdowns, it's unlikely he sustains that rate. And without those touchdowns, his numbers would look a lot worse than they do. So he's very touchdown or bust. The Seahawks-Texans game, we're not expecting a lot of touchdowns to begin with. But I'm going to go Cade Otton here. There could be a decent boost in targets. And again, we're talking about a really nice possible shootout with the Lions. Buccaneers are 6-point underdogs. They're going to have to throw the ball. I'm going to go Cade Otton and just kind of swing for the fences on that upside. All right, guys. One last time, let me just remind you. This doesn't have to be me reading you the week winner every week. This can be yours. There's no shame in spending less than one trip to McDonald's, $9.99 a month. All you got to do is scan that QR code, enter promo code YouTube. You're going to get 50% off every single month for as long as you wish to remain a member. You're going to get every single week winner, all the way through the Super Bowl, by the way. So if you're doing any playoff contests or Super Bowl betting, I do this for that. My users use this for their start-sit decisions. They use it for DFS. They use it for prop betting, all of the above. You're going to get every single one of these. You're going to get access to our awesome Discord community, which is 121 fantasy football players that are helping each other dominate every single week. As you can see, the Start Sit channel is very active. Lots of people asking questions, lots of people helping each other dominate. You're going to get access to monthly jersey giveaways every single month. An autographed jersey goes to one of my members of Basement Brewed Fantasy Football. The next giveaway is going to be at the end of this month. It's going to be during the last live episode of October. So one of the next episodes, which that might be next week, we're going to spin the wheel if it works, and we're going to see who wins an autographed NFL jersey, and you will automatically be entered into that opportunity if you're just a member of Basement Brewed Fantasy Football. I'm going to give you one last look as to what you get as a member of BBFF. Check it out. What's up, my fellow fantasy football nerds? If you're looking to dominate your league from start to finish and win cool prizes along the way, it's time to join the Basement Brewed Fantasy Football family. As a member, you're going to get our brand new 2025 Draft Dominator, which is your ultimate guide with tiers, rankings, and season previews for over 280 players to make sure you walk out of your draft with the best team in the league. And that's only the beginning. You're also going to get our 2025 Week Winner, which gives you contextual matchup analysis for every single player in every single game, every single week, so that you can conquer those difficult start-sit dilemmas and dominate your weekly matchups. And let's not forget our amazing Discord community, which is a family of passionate fantasy football players sharing strategy, workshopping dilemmas, and helping each other dominate 24/7, 365. Plus, if that wasn't enough, every single month you're automatically entered into our autographed jersey giveaway. It truly is a no-brainer if you want to take your fantasy game to the next level, have the most fun you've ever had playing this game, and support a small but mighty business along the way. Sign up today for just $69 for an entire year. Seriously. That's 365 days of total domination, community, and giveaways for less than your last bar tab. Join the BBFF family right now using the link that we left for you in the description of this episode. I'll see you inside. There you have it, my friends. Yeah, like I mentioned in that promo, it's you can do the $69 per year option, but usually when we're in the middle of the season, I find that people tend to want to prefer to try the monthly version as opposed to the annual, but it's usually $19.99 per month. You enter promo code YouTube and you're going to get it for $9.99 per month. Give it a shot, guys. We're talking less than one trip to McDonald's. You're going to enjoy your fantasy football experience a heck of a lot more than you enjoy it right now. And you probably already love fantasy football. But not only that, you are going to support a small but mighty business along the way. This is what I do full time, guys. This is where I'm trying to keep food on the table and pay the bills. So not only do you get to enjoy fantasy football even more than you do now, but you get to help a small business along the way. And who doesn't love doing that? That's going to be all. We lasted long during episode 69, which is very nice. That usually doesn't happen. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please do me a favor. It means a lot, and it helps a lot if you smash the like button. More importantly, smash that subscribe button on the BBFF YouTube channel. We're on a mission to get to 1,000 subscribers, and we are less than 100 away. So thank you very much for tuning in. Good luck today in week 7. I will see you on the fantasy football field. Cheers. This brew is for you.